Hello everybody, I'm Ramsis.
And I'm TheVespor.
And we just got back from GalaxyCon 2024 in Columbus, Part 3. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell, as we'll bring you a lot more where these came from. Now, for the conclusion of GalaxyCon 2024.
Sunday, December 8th.
So, we were ready for the last day of the convention. You know, it goes so fast, but it's also so enjoyable. That's how you know you're at a fun convention, when the days are like flying by because you're so busy and having so much fun. So what did we do? We checked out of the hotel because we weren't coming back to it.
If you don't know, we do park at the southern parking lot on the convention center, but there's many other parking garages that connect to it, so it's not the only one. If you pay that $25 parking, guess what? You're within walking distance. Go and bring some food. They have a little cafeteria. You can sit there and eat. They won't complain. And guess what? You save some money. And if you're like us and bring a cooler, get a nice drink too.
The convention, again, opens at 10 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday. We got there an hour early, and Sunday we knew was not going to be as crazy, and it wasn't. So we went to Starbucks, and it was busy.
But that being said, we got our drinks. I got a hot chocolate and Ramsey's got his cafe mocha, as you can see here. Then we sat there quietly and patiently, and we just talked about the things we were going to do today, and we were going to start off a little bit different because our first panel wasn't until 12:30 with the Aladdin voice actors. So we waited till almost 10 o'clock to go down and wait outside one of the random doors to get into the exhibit hall.
Yeah, and there wasn't a crazy line this time. There was still a line, but not a crazy. I'm telling you, Sunday, it is like almost empty. Even Friday had more people on this. So for some reason, Sunday's not getting the hype. And me and Vesta were thinking it's because Has-Been Hotel is done. You saw all the Has-Been Hotel cosplays that you could think of on Friday and Saturday. Sunday, maybe you saw just a few scattered. So really, once Has-Been Hotel's Q&A ended, that was it. The crowds just died down.
And there was still a line for the registration, but it was half the size, which still surprised me and Ramses, because you're like, oh, it's half the size, that's nothing. No, that convention center is long. That's still a lot of people.
So the door is open, and now finally, we can talk about the vendors in this exhibition hall, because we had Friday where we only got to look a little bit.
Yeah, this is actually more along the lines of our first year there. We didn't have time for anything first year because we were trying to figure out what to do and where to go, so we literally only could do a little bit each day, unlike last year where we were able to actually get all of our shopping done by Saturday.
Now, it's not like there wasn't Q&As. There was Q&As we were missing. It just, I don't think our fans or us are getting interested in it. It was Psych Q&A, which has Corbin Burnson, Kurt Fellow, Maggie Lawson, interesting, but I never watched Psych, so I didn't care. One Piece, again, I couldn't care less about it. So we had gravy here until the Aladdin panel. We had plenty of time. So we were going to use it to its fullest. We started to do a full walk around. We did about 2 rows on the first day there, so then we started with the 3rd row, and it was amazing. Now, the problem we had with last year's was everyone was an anime vendor. That is definitely not the case this year. This year, it was a very nice potpourri of everything you could think of and want, from artwork to 3D art. Yes, they had that again. Food. They had collectibles, toys, cards, games, cups, pennants, you name it, they had it.
And unlike last year, they were a little bit closer than normal because they had more actual vendors this year. We literally finished the vendor hall last year in like an hour. Not today. This thing was huge, it was packed, and guess what? When you want to look at stuff, it takes more time. That was not the case last year.
Yeah, and the vendors didn't care about pictures. They knew we were doing a show here. Like I said, we wear our badges now when we go to a show, just so people realize we're doing this for a show as well as our enjoyment, and if anyone wants to walk up to us, they know who we are. There were some vendors who didn't care at all we were taking pictures. Some made comments like, we took a picture of the DeLorean, and they had a mock-up Back to the Future DeLorean, $10 if you want to take a picture with it. We took a picture without intending to get in front of it. I couldn't care less. They didn't care we took the picture, but they're like, if you want to be in front of it, you can do that too. We're like, oh, no, thank you. But they didn't care we took the picture. That's the point I'm trying to make. You can literally take a picture of anything here, even things that you have to pay for to do. We have a toy vendor that we've seen now at 3 different conventions. One at GalaxyCon and one, I believe, at Lexington. And he's pretty much like the ultimate Transformer salesman here. He has like every single version of Transformers all the way from 1984 to the present. And they're all eBay plus prices, very expensive, but they're all in complete and very good condition. And the guy, I think, knows us because he saw us taking pictures again, and he was actually like pointing out ones we should be taking pictures with. And
oh yeah, one of them wanted to take pictures of was his complete original Megatron, which was really cool.
And it's not that I don't love Transformers. I have a very, very huge collection. I have hundreds and hundreds of Transformers. One day I'll show you guys that. But he knew we weren't buying. He saw very clearly we were just taking pictures of the show, and he was like, whatever, because he used the same line again, that he's not a collector, he's a salesman, we're the collector. He used the same exact line on me, and I think he remembered that we had that conversation last time I talked to him. So that was very cool. The nostalgia here was great. They had a lot of vendors that had a lot of old school stuff. So me and Vester already bought like really cool pictures on Friday, so we took care of that. But then they have these cool cup collectors and glass collectors that has every single logo you can think of on it. And it is amazing, really. We found Godzilla stuff. Vester was really into the Godzilla stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they had just about anything you could look for, which was wonderful. Anything pop culture, that is. And true to Ramsey's word, though, when we said at the Huntington Toy Convention is, be prepared to see a lot of 3D art. Well, you know what? They had a ton of 3D art, and it's getting better. It was much better than what we saw at the Huntington Comic and Toy Convention.
But they were all more expensive than Huntington. That was the thing. But they still did the same thing. They had all the same dragons. Like, you're always going to see these 3D dragons. They all use the same exact models. They probably buy a kit. You know, you can buy the type of design you want. It's probably readily made, and everyone buys the same thing. Colors is what really makes it impressive. When you start mixing greens and blacks and purples, and you have all these crazy colors, you really have some fun creations. And of course, the biggest thing there is Dungeons and Dragons / tabletop gaming. That is a very big market here at this convention, and at every convention, I guess. Dice and bags and the dice holders and cards galore. This convention had a lot of D&D related stuff.
Which is kind of funny because, you know, D&D may not be around much longer. It's not doing too well.
I mean, there was like hundreds of different dice, which is really cool. If you're into that stuff, boy, have I got the convention for you. They had everything you could think of in those regards. And then, of course, they had clothes everywhere, which is always awkward. Like, really, are you going to try a shirt on while you're standing there, or are you just going to take a chance? Usually, the problem with shirts of these things, they're cotton, so they will shrink. So even if you buy, like, say, a large, it's going to become a medium. If you buy an extra large, it's going to become a large. The problem is, though, the logo on it, or whatever iron-on they have on it, that doesn't shrink. So now you have a crumpled up thing, and you can't wash these shirts is what it comes down to. So I would say don't buy clothing. That would be my advice.
They had a lot of cool shirts, and I did want it, but the problem is just with anything, all this is so cool, but it's heavily overpriced. But be aware that we can go in there and save up for it like we did. I saved up like 2 years worth of stuff, so I probably spent way too much money this time, but this by far has been the absolute best vendors we've seen at any con.
Yeah, we wound up getting magnets. Now, the magnets are always fun because you're probably thinking, oh, magnet, that's stupid. No, me and Vester are magnet collectors. Whenever we go to a special place, we try to get a magnet of the location we're at. But the cool thing about conventions, you can buy like any pop culture image you want on a magnet. And I mean, how cool is that? Hanging on your refrigerator, your favorite Transformer character, your favorite movie poster, your favorite saying. I mean, they have everything you can think of a magnet. So, of course, we bought some magnets, which was great. And then the best was they had these light up images. You put it on the pedestal, you plug it in, and then it like multi-light on an image through like a glass in front of it. So, of course, they had all the famous characters again, you know, Godzilla and Super Mario Brothers and Sailor Moon characters, aliens, yeah, all the famous characters. So that was really cool. And a lot of these vendors, like this one included, gave you like a buy one, get one half price. So it's like you already know it's inflated, but if you're already going to pay that much anyway, because you already know they're overcharging you.
This is one of those things where you can go, you're going to spend your money, and the nice thing is that when you're done, you probably won't want too much more for quite a while.
Believe it or not, time is a running here. We are actually moving in on the 12:30 time limit here, so we got to get going.
We left the exhibition hall early enough to go back, get our drinks, and have a quick lunch, and put our stuff in the cart. And unlike Saturday, we had no trouble getting back.
Oh, it was no trouble at all. You wouldn't even know anyone was there or any problems. Yeah, we walked out and in. And believe it or not, after this, it is going to become a very busy schedule. So that's why we needed this morning to get all this stuff that we wanted. So now it's time to head to Aladdin. And the Aladdin actors is missing one. Usually Scott Weinger is there. He is the voice of Aladdin. For some reason, he didn't join him this time. And he's not a big star. He's not super popular. He's best known as the boyfriend of DJ on Full House, by the way, in case you're wondering who this guy is. But they had Linda Larkin and Jonathan Freeman. Linda Larkin is the voice of Jasmine. Jonathan Freeman voices Jafar. Still a very cool guest.
So we're thinking, all right, is this going to be another Hercules? Surely they don't have Milo Beasley, who allowed the Hercules to happen last year at the same Disney panel. Well, we were talking about, well, who could it be? Let's hope it's somebody fun. And then the moderator walks out stage. We both looked at each other and was like, oh my God, it's Milo Beasley.
He's very middle level. I mean, he's not bad. He's not good. He does the job, and he lets these celebrities just go on too long. He has no control over it. He's passive, but he's trying to be courteous and nice to them at the same time. But as a moderator, you got to take a little control, and he just doesn't do that. At the same time, we also have Jonathan Freeman, who's known to be very in character. And in character means you realize the character you play and you try to act like him sometimes. And he was doing that. You know, Linda Larkin really was not acting like Jasmine, which is fine, but Jonathan Freeman was definitely acting like Jafar during this, and that was what made this very entertaining.
No, what made it entertaining was the fact that they didn't talk about Broadway for 45 minutes.
No, Broadway did not even come up once, which was great. But it did go into weird places. Like, Milo was talking about he's going on a cruise, he lives in Orlando, and then it was like Linda Larkin's like, oh, I'm from Orlando, oh, we'll see each other on the Disney cruise. I mean, it was going into weird conversation like that, but that's what Milo does. Both of them had a good start. This is much better than Hercules already. Both of them were like talking how exciting it was to do it and how they can't believe after so long it's still as big as it is, and how important it was to do a movie like this, and how, you know, at the time you don't realize that it's going to still be talked about 40 years later. With the Hercules actors, you got, no, we never saw each other and who cared. This one you got, yeah, we interacted a lot with the ones that we were dealing with. No, you didn't always have the footage on screen, but you still had an idea of what was happening, and sometimes they would match it to you. But since Robin Williams was such a big part of this movie, they did have to sort of animate things to all of his free throwing and improvisation. So this is one of those weird hybrid movies where it was going off script a lot, but they liked it so much that they did create it to what was happening in the voice booth.
Everything is, you know, the actors are the last people to come in, the creative people are all there in the beginning, they're all working on the characters and getting them organized. All the scene work, all the text work is getting, you know, worked on. Actors come in, we do our work, and then the animation is the last because they animate to your voice with the takes that they decide to use. It's a long process, but it was really interesting.
That's a question that we get so much. Do we do the drawing first or the voice first? And as Jonathan said, we do the voice recording first and then they draw to the voice. And at the end, there will occasionally be a little sound, something that they've drawn in that they don't have an exact recording of, and then we'll do that sound to the picture. So that is the only case where we record after. Yeah.
But Milo was not doing anything special. He was leading along fine. He was giving Isham token questions. But the funny part was Jonathan Freeman just wasn't having it. He was like giving one-word answers. He was covering his eyes the whole time because we mentioned in previous reviews that the lights are horrible in these rooms. And if it's bad for us, it has to be horrible for the celebrities who are sitting on the stage and are even higher up and looking out. I mean, it has to be horrible. Jonathan Freeman was having a lot of trouble with the lights, so you can see he was very uncomfortable during this. But the panel doesn't get good until, of course, we go to the fans, because Milo couldn't lead a horse to water, so, you know, we had to get the fans involved. And to Milo's credit, he didn't take forever. He did get to the fans relatively soon enough. He went on for like 10 or 12 minutes before finally he realized that his questions were going nowhere. Let's get to the fans. And the fans are great. Someone did ask the exact question I was going to ask. And the question I was going to ask is, what was it like working with Gilbert Gottfried as Iago? Because you can only imagine the two of them playing off each other in the sound booth. Gilbert Gottfried with his wacky voice, doing all this crazy stuff, and it's so loud. Jonathan Freeman trying to play Jafar is so straight-laced and professional, and it must have been hard not to crack up. So, sadly, yes, Gilbert Gottfried's gone, and Jonathan Freeman felt bad about that. He's like, you know, I feel like I missed, like, my parrot, you know, someone who was always with me, my right-hand bird. We got along great in real life, and it was such a great bond the two of us had. Every time they wanted me to do a Jafar, he was always along, because they always needed Iago. Whenever you had a Jafar, you needed a Iago, so they were always together with everything. They traveled everywhere together, so he really feels like a part of him's gone now. And he says all these stories you hear that he's not nice, or jokes, or whatever he made that were inappropriate, none of that matters. He was the nicest guy in the world, wonderful person, very charitable, one of the greatest guys to know. And then, of course, he told a lot of good stories about, you know, them having fun together. So, yeah, that was exactly the question I would have asked. Sadly, that's the only time that Jonathan Freeman really opened up. Most of the times, he was letting Linda Larkin do all the talking, and she was doing a lot of talking, and then Jonathan Freeman would just be like, yeah, ditto, or yeah, she said it.
For example, this little girl asked her, you know, what would you do with your 3 wishes? And she had 3 beautiful princess answers to that, and then she looked directly over to to Jonathan and goes, well, what would you do with those 3 wishes? And he just looked deadpan at the girl out there who asked the question. Nothing.
Milo just shook his head, was grinning a lot. That's all he was doing the whole entire time. I'm like, how is this guy a moderator? He's doing absolutely nothing. At least Patty, interacts. He gets them going. Dunders does that too. What an easy job Milo had. So anyway, long story short, it was a great panel. A lot of fun. Definitely redeemed our Hercules experience because these two had fun with it. Even though Jonathan Freeman was definitely not overly assertive and talking, whenever he made snide comments and acted like Jafar, it was hilarious. And that's what you want to see. You sometimes want to see them act as a character they're famous for, because that's what you hope for. You hope that they're going to go into character suddenly and just start singing and just start quoting things. Like they did quote the lines. So it was a fun way to start, is what I'm trying to say. And hopefully that'll be a precursor for what we can expect this to.
And then it was coming close to the time that we had been waiting for. It was time to see Weird Al.
So we were a little worried because we're like, well, we know it's not going to be Has-Been Hotel. It definitely will not be Has-Been Hotel, but he's probably going to be the busiest of any panel this day. And he was, by the way. He was the busiest of any panel this day. We were in the main hall, and already, just like Has-Been Hotel, there was a line of people, which I was happy. I was like, come on, Weird Al has to get the love. Please show. And they did, and it made me feel better because I think Weird Al deserved it. So finally, 2:15, the show starts. And who walks out but Kid Cadet? And I was like, Kid Cadet?
Just like Milo Beasley, we go, oh my God, because we remember what she did with Nick Castle. And we're like, oh no.
We also knew it's Weird Al Yankovic. We said there's no way even the worst host can ruin Weird Al Yankovic. He's done thousands of interviews. This is what he lives for. He has a packed house here. So we hoped for the best, but it was disappointing they picked her. And again, this is not bashing Kid Cadet. We bash all hosts fairly here. She's not a great host. I'm sorry.
But Kid Cadet, if you do listen to this, you are much better than Tyler.
There was already a line, so there was no warming up needed. The crowd was already going crazy. Weird Al got a gigantic reaction. So Kid has like a piece of paper, and she's asking all these token questions. And Weird Al being Weird Al, some of them he's taking a little seriously, and some of them he's like, what is she asking me? And he gives funny one-word answers. And she's looking all like puzzled and confused because she doesn't know Weird Al. We know she doesn't know who Weird Al is. And she's looking confused, like, oh, that's it? And then she like moves on to her next question without really reacting that he's playing with her here. And that's what Weird Al does. Weird Al does jokes, he plays with you, he has mental games, and she's just like going through her list of questions without realizing that Weird Al is being facetious with her the whole time.
And you can tell us if he's being facetious with her or not.
I want to know, what's the song that you can listen to, whether it's one of your own or another artist, that can totally change your day around?
There's so many. Probably the one that really lifts my spirits is a song called Mama Get the Hammer, There's a Fly on the Baby's Head. I listen to that, and it just lifts my spirits.
Amazing. Very cool. I know that you also have your degree in architecture as well.
Use it all the time, yes.
I wanted to ask, because obviously you've been quite busy this weekend, so I don't know whether you've had the opportunity to walk around the convention center at all. There's a gigantic...
I came here.
Right, you made it here. Have you seen the gigantic head statue that's in the middle of the convention center?
I don't believe I have.
Oh, I wanted to know your take on it with your degree in
My take is
architecture.
I haven't seen it.
I'll have to get you there after.
Okay.
Cool.
So as you can see, yes, he had some very funny moments. I mean, it was really hilarious. Kid Cadet was taking like a trooper, of course. Really, I think what happened here is Weird Al was like, I don't want to answer these token dumb questions that I've always answered. Let's get to the crowd and my fans, because there's like 30 people, maybe 50 people in the line there. Let's get to them instead. And yeah, he got to those questions quickly. And this is where the real fun started, because the fans, quote unquote, I don't think all these people were fans, because some of these people were very strange and had questions that you shouldn't ask Weird Al. So some of them, of course, were like, what was your motivation for this song? And he answered that. Or what's your favorite song? And me and Vestor, as Weird Al fans, already know what his answers are, because these things have been asked so many. He does not have a favorite song, don't ask him that. He will not do a parody that you suggest, don't ask him that. But we found out that he has a song that he regrets and was not happy with, and it's Girls Just Want to Have Lunch. And me and Vestor were like, oh, that's weird. That song's not terrible, but it's not great. And he's like, well, there's a reason why I don't like it. And he says, nothing to do with Cyndi Lauper. I get along well with Cyndi Lauper. It's that the studio that produced my records at the time said, you have to do Cyndi Lauper. You can do anything you want, but you have to have Cyndi Lauper on it. And Weird Al's like, oh, well, that's fine. I'll just throw it as my fifth. As your number one song. And Weird Al's like, well, you're serious? And they're like, yeah, we're very serious. If you do not have Cyndi Lauper as your number one song, we are not producing this album. So he's like, all right. So he had to look through her, library and had to come up with Girls Just Want to Have Lunch instead of Girls Just Want to Have Fun. And he did bring out something that I've always noticed. When he's singing that song, it's very nasally. He's not enjoying it. He's like really exaggerating the sounds. That's definitely not one of his better sung songs. He's doing a very bad impression of Cyndi Lauper. And he says, there's a reason why I did it badly. I don't like to be forced to do something no matter what. He said, now, of course, no studio can get away with that. But back then, he was still up and coming. He had no choice. And he says, not even that it's a bad song. It's his least favorite just because he was forced to do it.
But his best responses came from like the younger kids because you know what? He's used to us, our age, because we were the young kids back when he was becoming a star and loved his stuff. And there's this little kid, he's probably like 8, maybe 9 years old, walks up to the mic, they lower it for him. Weird Al smiling. He was like, I have a question for me. And he goes, have you ever seen Murder Bots? Weird Al pauses for him, like, building up to dramatic effect. He goes, no. And then before he can answer, the kid goes, okay, then turns and walks away. And Weird Al just has this look on his face.
So then another comes up there and he's like, what do you think about Green Day? And Weird Al's like, oh, Green Day, I'm fine with Green Day. He's like, even though they wouldn't let you do their song American Idiot? And Weird Al's blinking. He's like, what are you talking about? It's on my album Canadian Idiot. Of course they let me do it, and they loved it. He's like, oh, I must be thinking of someone else. Never mind. And he runs away, embarrassment. And then you have a girl who walked up and said, oh, I'm such a fan because of my brother, and I could sing the whole Amish Paradise song. And Weird Al's like, oh, that's great. Amish Paradise is one of my top songs. And he's like, well, can you start it off for me and then I'll sing it the rest? And Weird Al's like, yeah, sure. So Weird Al does the first lyrics of Amish Paradise, and then the whole place goes quiet. She chokes up and runs away. Like, well, there you go. That was Amish Paradise.
One of them asked a really good question, because you tell which ones Weird Al like. No matter what, Weird Al still played, and he wasn't angry at anybody. Don't get us wrong. They ask, what's all this stuff building up for? What's the greatest thing that you're going to do with all this? And Weird Al takes one, well, I did all this for one reason. And that reason is to be the lead voice actor on Murder Boss. The entire crowd just erupted.
And it just went on and on. He was great. There were some very weird questions. But that's Weird Al. Weird Al's gonna get some weirdos. There was a lot of people who were like using my name's Moonbeam and my name is Rascal or something. I'm like, wow, are they just making up names as we go along here? Yes.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah, it was getting very weird. And even Weird Al was blinking. Like, I'm Moonbeam. Can I? It's like, what? And they were just like saying, you meant so much to me and you got me through depression, which is great. I will admit that when I was down as a kid, I would listen to Weird Al and it would cheer me up. It is true. Comedy music like that makes you feel better. And I appreciate that. Even 40 years later, Weird Al's still having that effect on the youngsters. I think that's a wonderful thing.
And I also want to point out, he was such a great sport. They literally came and said, don't do requests. And people were making some requests, and he still go along with it.
Flew by. It really went that fast. That's how much fun it was. So finally, after Weird Al's panel, they played Albuquerque. I'm like, well, there you go. Finally. They listen, play music, or show something related to the guest you have. It is such a simple thing to do. You have speakers and screens all over the place. Go to YouTube, find something, type in the guy's name. You'll see hundreds of things loaded up. It's not that hard to do, GalaxyCon. But anyway, so what happened next? So we had to, again, stay in the room because now we had a few more panels taking place in the main room that we had to see.
Our next panel, which was the Shazam Q&A with Zachary Levi and Cooper Andrews.
We had Dundridge again, and we were very excited, but don't get too excited because even Dundridge is going to have a little bit of an off day here on this panel. So Dundridge comes out, he's doing his usual warm-up. Hey guys, I hope you guys are enjoying it. This is great. And he gave a lot of promotional stuff. They told him to say this. It was very weird. He was like, we do this for you guys. I hope you realize it. We want to make sure that everyone's happy here. If it wasn't for fans like you, we wouldn't have a con. We want to thank you. He was doing a 2-minute long speech promoting GalaxyCon. It was very strange.
Yes, it feels like he went into the future and watched our video where we started criticizing people about how they actually took away a lot of enjoyment from the panel. Now, the moderators are absolutely needed for panels, but they shouldn't take the majority of the panel up or ask stupid questions. You're trying to warm the panelist up, whoever that may be, warm the audience up, and not sit there and do what the Inglorious Trexters did with Ernie Hudson, go, I'm here to indulge myself. Or with Tyler Woods a couple of years ago with Steve Whitmore and go, oh, I'm gushing here. And it ruined those panels.
Right. After his 2-minute thank you speech about how we do it for you, but we'll charge you for selfies and charge you for this. Because it was funny. I didn't say this when I was thinking, but a lot of people around me, as Dungeons was giving the speech saying, if you love us so much, you wouldn't nickel and dime everything, you wouldn't charge for this. I was thinking the same thing too. You have the goal to say we're doing it for you, yet you nickel and dime and you charge for every little thing you can. Yeah, that's not really for the fans. But anyway, it got weird because after he gave that 2-minute speech, he said, oh, and by the way, our guests here are for fun and for enjoyment. We're not going to allow any of the personal questions to Zachary Levi on any controversies that you may have read on the internet. We're here for fun. We're not going to allow any of that stuff here. So let's all be in agreement. We will not talk about anything controversial with Zach Levi.
Which is absolutely weird because the previous night with Gina Carano, and she's involved in a lot more controversies than Zachary Levi, said nothing about, oh, don't ask anything weird or strange or political to her, because with Gina Carano, that's what she's known for. And I'm like, what is going on? So me and Ramsey sat there with our phones looking to figure out what the heck Zachary Levi did that was so freaking controversial. Because most of his controversies were just around being a bit more conservative than Hollywood like.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it's come down to. So Zach Levi and Cooper Andrews come out. Everyone's excited. Yeah. And it was cool. They looked exactly like it did with Shazam, because Shazam's not that long ago. And Dundridge is not doing a good job here. I don't know how to explain it. I think it's because it's Sunday, it's 3:15, the fatigue is setting in, so Dundridge is definitely having an off day. Every single thing that one of them answered, Dundridge answered with, that's great, let's give him a round of applause. Every single time, and I'm not kidding, every time an answer has happened, let's give him a round of applause. And I'm like, why are we clapping over these ridiculous answers? That wasn't clappable. It's like, what is going on here?
Kingdom Come was great because, well, for so many reasons, but when it came to Shazam, I was like, this is what happens to Billy if he doesn't have that family. And so that was like a big, that's how I sort of saw it. Like, this is what happens if he doesn't have us. So that's my
love it. I love it.
Story, yeah.
Make some noise for that, y'all. Come on. Okay, so every time you go and wait very patiently on our lines and pay us very good money to scribble on pictures of our own faces, know that you are the true heroes. You're the reason why any of these movies, TV shows, video games, music, IP at all exist. These books, these comic books, everything. So to me, every time you take on a job that has that much history and that much fan base that has literally grown over, close to 100 years, you gotta do that justice. You can't screw around with that. You can't just be like, well, it's great that everybody loved this IP for so long, and that's really great, and it's great that all that love got it to where it is, but we're just gonna on all of that now, and we're gonna make some other thing because we're smarter and we want to, and I'm not saying everybody does that, but I think unfortunately a lot of times that's what happens. And I don't like that. So I really wanted to make sure that I was capturing the essence of who the character was throughout the comics, and then ultimately doing justice to the script that we got, which Henry Gayden wrote, which was a fantastic script, both times. And so, yeah, that was my journey with Captain Marvel. I love it. Make some noise, y'all.
There was a gigantic line here, and Dundridge was doing things that made me annoyed whenever they ignore the line to indulge themselves, because he did do a little bit of indulging here by asking far too many questions, but Zachary Levi would not shut up.
Oh yeah, he was his own biggest fan. He wasn't as bad as the Matilda actress, but he was thinking he's funnier than he really is. He's not funny. I'm sorry. I like Zach Levi. You're a good actor, but you're not as funny or as loved as you think you are. And you got to realize that about yourself sometimes, that you're your own biggest fan. People are not like, wow, Zach Levi, how would I ever see Shazam if he wasn't in it? It's his other show, Chuck, that I would say, yes, you need him, and that was what he's famous for. And there was a lot of Chuck questions, by the way, all over the place by Dundridge and the crowd. So Chuck is what he was getting more of the love for, which also was a weird irony because Shazam was not a loved franchise. Yes, they did 2 movies, but only because the first one did well by some miracle, and the second did not do well. So I'll be very honest, you wouldn't even know Cooper Andrews was sitting there, because I think he got like 25% of the attention, whereas Zachary Levi got 75% of the attention.
And Cooper Andrews is known for The Walking Dead, of course. But the thing about it was, and I think as we went on, the more controversy about was the fact that they didn't elaborate at all why the second movie did as bad as it did. They're like, oh, this was so great. And they're pulling a Delancey at this point. It was, they would only answer certain things. Zachary Levi would fill it up by going, gee, I started this foundation. It helps tend to people with mental health problems. Please donate. Oh, by the way, I learned this from Nathan Fillion. Name dropping. Very tacky. Well, it really was very tacky because we wasted too much time on these little auctions, which were only cash, so they wouldn't be taxed, for him to sign some stuff to raise money for his foundation, which was at the same time going through the crowd and asking if you'd be willing to be interviewed about this panel and what's going on, and like nobody around us was having any of it.
And the auction was very awkward. He did it 3 times. I think he wanted to do a lot more, but it was not working at all as how he thought it would. He probably thought this was going to be the greatest thing ever. But again, Zachary Levi doesn't realize he's not the big star he thinks he is, and he does not have the pull that he thinks he does. So he was like, I have a cup here, and I'm going to sign it, and we're going to do it in $20 increments. So, you know, $20 someone bid, and then no one else bids. He's like, come on, this is for charity, very important. And then someone was like, $25. And it's like, all right, go, yeah, I'll take that. And then eventually wound up for $40. And then he's like, all right, that's great. And then he didn't go back to that for like 10 more minutes. And then he goes back, he's like, I have a rubber duck that a fan gave me. And I'm like, that's disgusting. So you're giving away something that a fan from their heart wanted you to have, and you're just gonna give it away now. Yes, it's for charity, that's great, but you think that you would have a little more appreciation that a fan gave you something that they thought was special, you know?
Oh, and by the way, he was also saying that they took gifts from other people at the con and was using them for these auctions he was running, and I'm going, wow, this is the most messed up panel we've seen. Dundrix is tired. He's trying to keep things on track. People are asking fun questions, but oh my god, it was a circus to say the least. Don't get me wrong, this circus actually made this panel one of the more interesting ones at the GalaxyCon because the energy was there, but it was just all over the place, and it was still better than the Matilda actress from last year.
The crowd was into it. The questions just kept coming. Really, Zachary Levi was his own biggest fan. It was very weird how he just kept like boosting it, and then he kept pushing the second movie. I noticed he was doing this. Every time a question would come, he would talk about something, and then he would like mention, oh, like, you know, the scene in our latest movie. So he would mention dragons, he would mention they were in a bedroom, he would mention when they find out this, he would mention that, they lost their power. Like, he kept throwing in moments from the movie, like, to get us excited. Oh, well, we better now go see the second movie because he talks so much about it, even though the movie hasn't been in theaters in 2 years. Barkin Bin, I mean, I don't know what he was trying to do, get people to suddenly want to see this bomb of a Shazam movie that nobody saw.
And as time went on, Cooper Andrews was starting to get more questions directed towards him as it went on. It was actually kind of interesting, and he was such a good speaker and just laid back. He wasn't this high energy person like Zachary Levi. It started to work out as it went on, but this definitely was an interesting panel.
And even Cooper Andrews was like, you know, I didn't tell Zachary until the end of the first movie. I was his biggest fan ever due to Chuck, and I think that was why he was. And I'm like, wow, this is so pandering and ego boosting and self-fulfilling. I'm like, this is a ridiculous panel. I didn't hate it. It really was entertaining. It's one of those train wrecks that you can't look away from. It's actually enjoyable because it's a train wreck, but it's not enjoyable because these two were just not working well together. I think Zachary Levi by himself would have been boring, but Cooper Andrews by himself would be unwatchable. So I think you needed the two of them together, but you needed something else here because even the questions became very Chuck related. They became very Walking Dead related. No one was really talking about Shazam, and this was like, what power would you like? You know, the usual questions.
And the best part about all of this was it really gave me and Ramsey something to talk about because after this, we thought about going back to the exhibit hall for maybe another half hour, but that panel finished us off, and with that, we took a few more pictures, looked around, said goodbye to GalaxyCon 2024. Thank you. You did so many things right.
And they did so many things wrong, which is what we're going to talk about in a little bit here. So the best con ever? No. The worst? Definitely not. It was great, but a lot to talk about here. As you can see, we just gave you 3 days worth of entertainment here. So it would have ended with an auction at 6:30. So about 7 o'clock is when everything would have finally lit up. So we headed home. We both went our own ways as we got back to our respective homes, and that was it. And that was the end of our 3-day experience. So lots of fun. Can't recommend it enough. Hopefully you guys have your own stories and recommendations and feelings about some of the stuff we didn't do. But with that being said, we are now going to rank all the panels and all the Q&As we did. And this is going to be very quick and to the point. We'll get more detailed with the Q&A. The side panels are just those little things you do when you want to get a different taste of things. You're not seeing a celebrity. You're just having fun doing something specific to pop culture in general. And we did 4 side panels all together. And we're going to rank them all, of course, from the worst to the best, as we do with all our ranking.
Panels are chosen purely by enjoyment. So, starting at number 4.
Retro gaming runs. And this was something we just dabbled in. We wanted to see what exactly was going on here. They changed the feel of the gaming for the most part. This was where contestants face a retro game with 1 life to win it. and it was hosted by Elgin David, and I think the host was the real problem with this. He thought he was being funny and cute. So the idea of this was he starts you off on an easy cheesecake type challenge, and then he throws in the hardest part of the challenge after. Ha ha ha. Very funny. It was actually very stupid, honestly.
For example, in Punch-Out, as we saw when we got there, they started with Glass Joe, and then after you beat him, you're going against Mike Tyson, and oh ha ha, it's so funny, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole joke to it. Yeah, this wasn't that exciting. Even the crowd was sort of not enjoying it that much, and it really dispersed very quickly.
And coming in at number 3 is GalaxyCon Runway Costume Contest. And, well, this one was just a place for people to go and basically show off. Now, they had another room where they judged to see if your costume was worthy to go to this runway contest. And it was overall just a very fun experience. Some people went a little too far, some just wanted the attention, but overall it was nice to see all of these costumes, and it was definitely something worthy of going to. And the best part about this was, unlike in other cons we've been to, it wasn't held at 9 o'clock at night.
At 6 p.m. on Friday, it was a great time to relax a little bit. You've been here all day now, let's see what else they have to offer. Some of the guys and gals were great in this, some were very silly and not getting the idea of this, some were doing it for other reasons, and some didn't know how to get into the character. So it was very awkward and weird. The reason we rank it 3rd instead of higher than the other stuff is it's just fun eye candy, and that's all it was. There was no real substance to this. Some were better than others. 3 randos got to judge it. Just to get an idea of all the fans wearing costumes, it was good for that purpose.
Coming in at number 2, Nintendo World Championships. Now, this was hosted by Abdallah Smash. He was wise because he actually did a retro panel, and he used all the old games that we knew. He would not choose any of the old guys who raised their hands, like me.
No, he went for all purely Gen Z and millennial and younger type players, and that was fine. It made it funny and amusing. You know, if you picked Vesper or Ramsis or any of the other 30, 40-year-olds there, we all know how to play Nintendo games. This is not a challenge. Like, one of the challenges was beat a Lionel quickly in the stage. Well, we could have done that. They were having so much trouble figuring out how to avoid its sword, how to get to it. I mean, he did it right, and he had them turn around so that they couldn't watch, and it was fun. It was actually very good for what it was. It was perfect for the con, and it worked out very well. So yeah, very enjoyable show. He was being a little too nicey nice was the problem I had, and that's fine. He's a host. He was trying to be nice to everybody, but when you suck, you suck. Don't be like, oh, that was a great attempt. No, that wasn't a great attempt, Abdul. That was actually pretty bad.
So coming in at number 1 is retro game collecting. We went to this one kind of hesitantly because both me and Ramses are, in our own way, definitely collectors of video games, and we were like, well, let's see what they recommend to people getting into it. Well, what she got into was not just the basics, but some advanced things you need to be careful of, such as fraud and how to spot it and how not to go broke collecting these things. And I think that's the biggest thing to do, and to know that whatever you put into your video game collection, you will not get out of it.
I enjoyed it. The thing about this panel, though, is I already knew everything. That didn't make it bad, and that's why it's number 1. Very informative, but I already knew all this stuff, because I am a video game collector, actually, and every single thing she said, I realized. I mean, people that have these full NES collections, they bought it well before 2012. She's exactly right, that because there was no value to it. Nobody cared. But then when all the people our age became able to buy all this stuff, suddenly there was a value to it. See, that's what happened. We all got old enough where we're now all working. We now have jobs, so we can start buying this stuff. And that's when the value went up and everything, and it hasn't really gone down since. The panel only lacked in that she went a little short on it, and it wasn't very graphically impressive. You know, she had text everywhere, which is fine, and the text was very important. And she threw in pictures here and there. You have a PowerPoint presentation, and there's like so many things you can do with PowerPoint. She pretty much just did the basic circles, text, circles, text. I'm like, come on, you could do a little better than that. So that was one downside.
But that being said, if you're going to a panel, it's just because you're interested and want to fill some time, because that's what me and Ramses actually wanted to do. We wanted to fill some time and wait for our panels to come up. So that's why we did it.
We go to our Q&A rankings. We went to 13, and I know that's crazy, 13 Q&As in total this time around. So this is going to be a lot of celebrities that we saw in these 13 Q&As. Now, for the Q&As, we do take into consideration other factors, not just how much we enjoyed it. We mentioned this in every review we do of a convention, and it's not any different here. These 3 criteria are how we rank all these Q&A, plus the fact if we like it. Like it goes without saying.
Our first thing that we consider for every panelist is the enthusiasm. The second thing that we look for is the knowledge. We want to hear about movies and things you've done in particular that make you the star that we came to see. And finally, interaction. We want you to interact with the crowd and not be a monolith looking down on us.
We're going to start with the rock bottom, number 13. So it's an unlucky number, and it's going to be unlucky for you, Nick Castle. And why is Nick Castle so bad? A few factors. Kid Cadet was the worst moderator you can get for him. She had no idea anything that this guy did. She was just like asking basic questions and just saying, oh, tell us about that. Oh, really? Yes, how was that? And it was like zero energy. And unfortunately, Nick Castle himself had zero energy. And I'm not going to blame Kid Cadet for that. He didn't bring his A game. It became mostly a Halloween-based panel, even though he was involved in so many other things. And it was when the crowd started bringing up other things, then you learned a little more. But he was just dull after a very short time, actually.
And I believe the reason he didn't have that energy was because Kid Cadet just kept going on about Halloween. He actually had a long list that was detailed in the program. When the fans got there and asked him different questions that weren't Halloween related, he got excited, and it felt like a real panel.
Moving on to the next in our list here of Q&A panel rankings is number 12. And this is very surprising that this guy's at 12, because you think, wow, there's no way this guy could be bad. And number 12 is
George Takei. Now, Ramsey's warned me about George Takei, that over the years he's gotten very much so biased about what he wants to talk about, and in doing so, it takes a lot of enjoyment from these panels. And by that, I mean he would talk about obscure things. He'd also talk about the important things, about being a survivor of the Japanese-American internment camps. But his enthusiasm was kind of low. He was old, he was tired. Questions would be asked, and he would spend an inordinate amount of time answering each question, and every time he answered it, it took like 15 minutes to answer one question.
The problem was he got through 3 questions, and all 3 questions were pretty much the same, not related to Star Trek. I don't think he answered one Star Trek question, and that was very similar to William Shatner the first time. He was old. He was showing his age. He was like having trouble remembering things. He was fumbling. He was going, oh, a lot. He was not sure where he was at times. It was very strange. And I know George Takei is an older man now. That's fine, but not talk about why we're there is one of the biggest insults. Knowledge was not covered because I wanted to hear about Star Trek. I wanted to hear about in the movies. I wanted to hear about the TV show. I wanted to hear about his experiences. None of that was covered. And even the host had to do a better job, and I blame Patty for this one. Patty really had to control and wrangle this in a little more. He was letting these waxing poetic about look at the hero I am stuff go on for way too long, and it was all about me, which is wonderful, but that's no interaction when you're just talking about how great you are as a social icon. Nothing about what we wanted to hear was said, and the crowd wasn't really that excited. He had a line a mile long, and he got through 3 questions. But yeah, unfortunately, he's number 12. I was very disappointed, and Vess was right. I said, be ready. I said, you're not going to hear him talk about anything. He's going to talk about how he's a social icon now, and how he's a freedom fighter, and yay me, and that's exactly what he did.
So coming in at number 11 is the Video Gaming Roundtable, which was with Eric Vale, Roger Craig Smith, Patricia Somerset, and Sonny Strait. And you know what? This panel would have been amazing if all 4 participants talked. Instead, it was Roger Craig Smith, the Sonic voice actor, who stole this panel and made you question why there was anybody else there. He was funny, he was great, but the problem is there's 4 panelists and only one person answering the questions to the panel. You're so much more interesting as you have a bigger career and voiced more people, so they always kept going back to him. I wanted to hear what they all had to say, not just one person.
It should have been a Roger Craig Smith panel only. I mean, let's be honest. I hate to insult the others. No one cares about minor characters in Dragon Ball Z. No one cares about someone who did Zelda's voice once or twice. when you have 20 games with Zelda being voiced in. So the other 3 were, let's get rid of them. But in GalaxyCon's creativity, oh, we can combine people and get more things going on here. No, do a panel with Roger Craig Smith. That's what people wanted to see. Why wouldn't you do a panel with just the Sonic the Hedgehog voice actor who's been doing Sonic's voice for many, many, many years and was involved in so many other things? I mean, that's the big star of this panel. Why are you throwing 3 also-rans with him? It didn't make any sense to me. The crowd came out to ask a question. It was always, oh, Roger, I want to know about this. Oh, can you tell us the Sonic story? No one asked anyone else anything. The moderator felt bad and kept on like saying, oh, and what about you guys too? Why are we calling it Video Gaming Roundtable? What roundtable? And I'm ranking low because it's such a disappointment. It's such a missed opportunity. Oh, we gotta make these out. No, it was stupid. Only Roger Craig Smith was needed. I mean, this is on you, GalaxyCon. You messed up on this one.
Coming in at number 10 is a surprising panelist, Keither Sutherland. He did Lost Boys, he did Young Guns, he did 24. Why is he number 10? Well, his enthusiasm was absolutely rock bottom. He talked in this monotone voice. His interaction was questionable at best. He looked like he'd rather be in bed than be here. And the moderators didn't help. The moderator, Patty, he hero worshipped for far too long, and it took a lot away from the panel. Keither Sutherland, to his credit, did try to answer as many questions as he could, and they were fun to listen to. He was not bringing any energy to the panel at all, which is a shame. It's hard being a moderator because sometimes you need to be down guiding the questions, other times you need to be up on the stage. But for the problems of this panel, he could have easily have done it because he was right there next to the microphone. He could have literally went, oh, thank you, Keither. Let's move on to the next question.
And I'm a big fan of Kiefer. I was not a big fan of this panel. This is kind of like the John Delancey. I was so looking forward to, oh, this is going to be great. He's going to have so much to say. And then he shows up and he's like bored. He doesn't want to be there. Zero energy. He's sort of going through the motions. And I get it. He was a replacement for John Cleese. It was like a last second thing. So they had to get a big name. And Kiefer Sutherland's a big name. Please, we need you. We have to fill in a huge slot here on Saturday. And he came. He was at 3:15 instead of John Cleese. And he did his job. He made his paycheck. But just showing up and being there is not enough, all right? You're going to rank low on the TheVespor and Ramsis scale because I don't care if you're Brad Pitt. I don't care if you're Madonna. If you're going to show up and have zero enthusiasm, you're not going to rank high. It's as simple as that. Keither was answering the questions. He got through all of it. He had a few whips. He had a few one-liners. People would ask him questions and he gave like zero effort into answering. People would ask really interesting stuff and he put like no effort into elaborating on it. Like, we didn't learn anything about working on these shows, working on these movies. The only time it was fun was when he told out Lost Boys, which is interesting because you think like his 24 stories would be his most interesting stuff because that was like his latest big stuff that he did. No, it was all about Lost Boys, which is cool, but that was also because the fans were pushing it that way. Even at that, he never really pushed it. Patty had to try to get some energy out of him. The fans were trying to get him to laugh. It just was very awkward. The guy was like being forced to sit there because they threw so much money at him. It was very weird.
As you can see, we come in expecting things and sometimes our expectations aren't met. Just like our next panelist, number 9, Gina Carano.
Now, she is a very interesting figure because some guests they didn't want to get risque, some guests they were careful with. With her, it was whatever you wanted, which is great. And again, you got Patty, and this was a weird Patty. This is where Patty sort of did like a 180. But yes, she had a very big falling out with Disney. She said what she wants to say, and Disney didn't like it. And now it's fight the power, I hate Disney, and love me. That was pretty much what it is. The problem with this panel, she had nothing to say. You realize, wow, without the controversial stuff, this woman really has nothing to talk about. And why is she ranking higher is because she had the energy. Unlike these other guys below her, she was excited to be here. She was so happy with the fans that support her, but she had nothing to talk about. Every time they asked her a Star Wars question, she didn't know how to answer it because I think she didn't want to think about it. It's such a negative thing in her life now. You really think she wants to talk about how this show that made her was taken away from her all because of a Twitter/X post she made.
The thing she did talk about a lot was her life and her life decision going into MMA, how she got there, how she got married. So her knowledge was very little, but she did talk and name drop about Carl Weathers on The Mandalorian, about what could have been before Disney decided to cancel her. Her enthusiasm was through the roof, but she was also really, really nervous, which surprised me because the fans are the ones that loved her, not Disney.
And when she did talk, it just was nothing. And that's why, unfortunately, she ranks where she does. I thought it would be a lot better. We were surprised that she had zero substance. And that's what kept her at number 9.
Coming in at number 8, Ernie Hudson. Yes, folks, We worship Ghostbusters and the ground it walks on. And we love Ernie Hudson. Winston Zeddemore is needed for the movie to succeed. We know that Ernie Hudson is reserved. He knows what he's saying. He doesn't get overly worked up. And my interactions with Ernie Hudson when I got his autograph was like, oh man, he laughs, he chuckles, he tells little side stories. Yes, he doesn't remember everything because he's done so many movies over the year, but that wasn't the problem. The problem with Ernie Hudson's panel was the Inglorious Tricksters. They killed it because the first words out of the Inglorious Trickster's mouth was, let me indulge myself here. And you know what that means? That means we have another Joe Jr. on our hands where they're going to talk about obscure things and hog all the questions until Ernie Hudson had literally 10 minutes left to answer questions.
Yeah, it was another I'm gushing, and we hate that stuff. You know, don't do that stuff to us. And the problem with this one is the Inglorious Tricksters did a panel before who hasn't shown up in our rating yet, and they were great, but they only had 2 of them. Now you bring in the third one, and this third guy is the one I hate. He wasn't helping things at all. He was asking very dumb questions to Ernie, and it just like changed the whole mood of it. Ernie couldn't get into a flow at all here because the moderation was so bad. It really just was horrible. Winston quotes were playing all throughout as we're building up. You hear the Ghostbusters music. So yeah, they built up everything very wonderfully. And then they come out and it's like no one was laughing at anything the Tricksters did. Ernie was just having trouble recalling things. They were asking very weird questions. Like they were barely talking about Ghostbusters. And that's one of my pet peeves, as you guys also should know by now. Stick on the subject. Ernie Hudson. Yes, he's done 100 things. Why don't we talk about Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 and Ghostbusters Afterlife and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire? Why don't we talk about that? They did for a whole like 3 minutes. Yeah. Otherwise, it was just obscure stuff that no one could care less about. And they were gushing. They were indulging. It was bad. Then the fans finally got to ask questions with only about 12 minutes left. And even that wasn't so good because, I don't know, the fans just weren't able to get the right questions out. And this is all potluck too. So I have to say the fans sort of messed up on this one too. And it wasn't due to Ernie sucking, but he definitely was not really feeling it either. It just, nothing worked right here. That was the problem with this.
With our number 7th ranked panelist, Linda Larkin and Jonathan Freeman.
The Aladdin voice actors. And they were good. Linda was actually better than Jonathan Freeman.
Yeah, that's because Jonathan Freeman was only 2nd rate.
And it was Milo Beasley, not one of our favorites. He's as middle-of-the-road average, no frills moderator as you can get. He was letting him go with it. He was grinning. He was nodding a lot as they were talking. He really was not adding anything to the panel. So you didn't need Milo there. Those two could have ran it themselves just fine. What did help is they were very on subject. They were talking about Aladdin. They were talking about its influence on everyone. They were talking about how they never expected in 2024 they would still be doing stuff related to something they did in 1992. They had stories about them working together. And of course, my favorite moment, as I mentioned, was Jonathan Freeman talking about Gilbert Gottfried. That's the only time he opened up. And it was very sad because Jonathan Freeman was quasi in Jafar character. And in character means when you're acting like someone that you play on screen or in voice. He did a lot of Jafar in character stuff where someone would ask a question like, what would you wish for? He'd be like, nothing, you know, in Jafar's voice, by the way. Linda Larkin, on the other hand, just talked, and she was great. Bucket full of knowledge. Linda had the energy for both of them. But the reason they're 7th is John didn't have the energy until that one question really opened him up a little bit.
The questions were good, and the thing I found most interesting about them was the fact they actually talked about how they have to do the voice acting first so that they can be animated afterwards because of Robin Williams and his genie bit. And they talked a lot about the behind-the-stage shenanigans that was going on, which a lot of people at this point did not do.
Again, Jonathan Freeman needed to bring his A game a little bit. When he did, he was great. When he didn't, it was very disappointing. So let's move on to number 6. Zach Levy and Cooper Andrews, the Shazam actors.
What surprised us the most was, we were like, oh great, Dundrix is here, he's going to save the panel. Well, there was a little problem with that. The first thing he does is, let's not talk about anything political, which had us all scratching our head. Everybody in the crowd was like, what? Shouldn't this be with Gina Carano's panel?
Yeah, exactly. What political? What are you talking about?
And what happened was, Zachary Levi comes on stage. He's the showstopper. He's another sonic voice actor here, as it was all about me, what I'm doing, what I'm supporting. And then, oh yeah, by the way, here's Cooper Andrews. And even Cooper fed into this and fed into Zachary Levi's ego. What took away from this panel was both Dundrich and Zachary Levi. Everything Zachary Levi said, Dunger's like, let's get a round of applause for that. And
Every time.
Hey guys, look at my foundation over here. We help people with mental problems. I'm going to conduct an auction, which we talked about earlier. This all took away from the panel and the fun of the panel.
And another problem was he was still advertising for a movie that hasn't been out for 2 or 3 years now, Shazam 2. He was promoting this nonstop throughout, and I'm like, no one saw the movie, Zach. No one's gonna suddenly see it because you're talking about it. But he was so trying to push this movie. He's like, oh, and there's this great scene with the dragon. Like, no matter what he asked, it always went back to Shazam 2 somehow. We had so much fun working on it. Remember that scene where, like, he kept throwing lines in, throwing scenes? The movie bombed, and he still hasn't gotten over it. You can very clearly see that he was still trying to prove that this was a good movie, and it wasn't. Zach Levi was his own biggest fan, and Cooper Andrews didn't help things because even Cooper was like, oh, when I found out you were Shazam, I was so excited. I couldn't believe it, but I was afraid to tell you. And then he would go back to this stupid auction thing again. He had like 2 fanboys who were just bidding on this stuff in $20 acre. The whole thing was just so awkward and ridiculous. But did they have the enthusiasm? Yes. Did they have the knowledge? Yes. Did they have the interaction? Yes. It was very entertaining. Like, I was not bored because of how ridiculous this panel was going.
This had the makings of WrestleMania 2 and just how over the top silly this was. So that being said, we finally made it to our top 5. At number 5 is Has Been Hotel. This was the mother of all panels. Never has there been so many people in a panel that we've been to. This was packed to the brim, and I had to use my camera on a tripod to see what was going on because we were so far back, we couldn't see anything. And then whenever they muttered anything, the crowd was like, yeah, woo, clapping as loud as they can. You're like, what are they talking about? The biggest problem with this panel, there's 9 of them, and they would take a moment after every question and go, you got this? Oh, I got this. No, you got it. Oh, you'll do it? And then it took another minute or 2 for them to decide who was going to answer the question.
It became a lot of fan worship, and I think that's the problem I have with this. I've never felt like, oh my god, this is the greatest experience of my life. But these people were like, I'm meeting my idol of idols, and I can't stop gushing, and I'm gonna cry. I mean, all the questions started with, before I get to my question, I gotta tell you how much this means to me. I used to be depressed, but now that I started watching the show, you cheered me up. I wouldn't have been who I am. I was able to identify myself because, I mean, it would always be these 2-minute long preambles before they got to the question about how great this show is, how great they are, how life-changing it was, and then they would get to their silly question about who's sleeping with who. It's like, all right, so you're worshiping them, but then you're going to ask a stupid, immature question, and that kept happening time and time again. This time, they warned you, yes, this is going to be mature audiences only, we're going to go there, sexual themes, cursing, inappropriate stuff, it's all going to be there, and it was. An hour and a half you should be giving these people to talk. Really. This is the highlight of your convention, and we're throwing them out for George Takei, and we did George Takei. Let's just say it was not worth it. Keep Hassett Hotel on there, move George Takei to a smaller room. I mean, really, George Takei's room did not fill up. I don't blame Has Been Hotel for that panel not being as great as it can be. I blame GalaxyCon for this not being as great as it could be, because you don't realize what you have here. You don't realize this is the biggest thing you have going on here. Focus on it, highlight it, extend it, make it amazing, make it an event. Have the TV outside showing it to all the people who couldn't get in. Have it highlighted. GalaxyCon, you don't get what you had here. Everyone wearing the cosplay felt so much love to the show, and you're just like giving a 35-minute little thing as if it's not a big deal. This was a big deal what you had here. Not to me, I'm not fanatical, but I get it. If I was running the convention, I'd say, yep, double session, we're making this special, and then you have something good. So again, GalaxyCon, you messed up here. Panel was amazing. They loved what they did. They loved the fans. The enthusiasm was through the roof. But why is it ranked lower? Because it was just not run properly.
After number 5 comes number 4, which is hard because number 4 could have been number 3. So coming in at number 4 is the Secret Wars Q&A with Jim Shooter and John Beatty. This moderator's name is Tyler Woods, and he was the nemesis for all things good at our first GalaxyCon and ruined another panel there. Whenever you have Jim Shooter going, hey, we have fans here, let's answer their questions, and he ignores you, you know that something's wrong. And was in the front row. We love Jim Shooter.
Yeah, he definitely did not look well, and it was sad to see him like this. But besides looks, it was Jim Shooter. It was Jim Shooter in every way. As sharp as attack, his voice was strong, he was answering everything great. And that's why this is number 4. This was one of the most knowledgeable. Remember how we ranked knowledge? Knowledge and interaction was very high. Enthusiasm, you're not really going to get. Jim Shooter's not an enthusiastic type of guy, but that's just him.
Funnest thing you can do is get him to grin. like me and Ramses did. He appreciates it when you acknowledge what he's been through and how hard of a job it was being an editor to try to do this. He had so many stories that me and Ramses never even heard. And every time we go to these panels, we literally learn something new.
I really did not know that Secret Wars was due to Mattel wanting to sell Marvel toys. I was shocked. I had no idea that this is because they thought that Hulk, Iron Man, Spider-Man are not marketable enough, which is laughable when you say it. Even Jim Shooter's like, do they realize that Marvel Comics outsells them 8-1? When Mattel was like, we can't market your stuff, we don't know who any of your characters are, Jim Shooter's like, I got this. And he came up with the whole Secret Wars, how the name Secret Wars came to be, why they did it. He had such interesting stories about Doctor Doom. He was talking about the Fantastic Four. He was talking about Spider-Man's involvement. The black suit, that was such a big deal. When Spider-Man got the symbiote that turned into his suit, that all started with Secret Wars. People forget that. It was all Secret Wars related, and they didn't know it was going to be Alien. Jim Shooter was just like, come up with a reason. They didn't know why he had a black suit on, and they came up with that it's a symbiote and it's going to become Venom eventually.
And he also told a wonderful story about how one of the major writers for the X-Men was not happy that Spider-Man was going to take on and temporarily hold the entire X-Men team at bay by himself, when he's like, hey, Cyclops would just look at Spider-Man and blast him and it would be over. And then Jim Shooter looked the guy in the eye and said, so show me once in the last 10 years when Cyclops has been able to ever hit what he's aiming at. And said the guy just turned, grumbled, and walked away. I mean, this was great stuff. Oh yeah, and by the way, John Beatty helped.
Oh, was John Beatty there? I didn't even know. I thought this was the Jim Shooter panel. And we're being facetious, and that just shows how strong Jim Shooter was. In spite of, not due to, in spite of John Beatty being there, he still ranks number 4 to us. So that just shows how interesting a panel this was. John Beatty did not have anything at all of substance to say, and that's not his fault. I am not bashing you, John Beatty. I think you're a great inker. You had nothing to say, though, because this was a knowledgeable panel here. This was about Secret Wars. This wasn't about, oh, yes, and when I was inking it, it was very hard. No, there was nothing to talk about. There was nothing.
Yeah, and Jim Shooter did actually ask him several questions, but he decided to just, sort of push it under the rug. Joe Jr. here felt sorry for him because he kept trying to ask him and still got like 2-sentence answers out of him. And by this point, Tyler Woods didn't feel it was good enough yet.
Yeah, he then turned to John and started talking to him more, and Jim must have done a double take here. I was like, what? He couldn't believe that the audacity of this guy to ignore the crowd so they can ask an inker who doesn't want to answer anything some more questions.
Yes, Jim Shooter has always been and always will be. It's for the fans, even in the panel. He wants to interact. You will never have a better comic book experience than talking with Jim Shooter.
But now we're getting to the nitty-gritty. This is where we're giving them medals now.
These 3 things are how we judge the panels to try to stay unbiased, but the unspoken rule is we have to really like you ourselves and played a big part in our childhood or young adulthood.
That's the reviewer's prerogative, so that's what we're using here. So for the bronze medal, and it's Zach Galligan, the Gremlins actor. When we met him in person with the autograph, he was shy, he was nervous, he didn't want to touch people.
But he did give a fist bump, and I guess that's maybe what turned it around for us, because while he may not want to shake hands or anything like that, he at least acknowledged that you like him and thought he was awesome, and that's what we wanted to see. And holy cow, when we got to the panel, the Inglorious Trexters were doing it right. They built up the crowd. It was wonderful. They didn't ask him anything stupid, and they actually turned it over to the fans before the end of the freaking panel.
I guess they weren't gushing over him for whatever reason. And again, I'm going to give them credit. We're bashing the Inglorious Trexter, but I think it's because of that third guy that I don't like. The other 2 did a great job here. They had trailers going, they had the music going. Like, they set the mood so well. The Glorious Trexter are doing something very simple that does not take a rocket science to figure out. Play the music, play something related, play a trailer, do something related to the celebrity that you're about to have come out. That's all you have to do, play something related. And he got the crowd greatly into this because Zach Galligan comes out, the crowd's going wild. He's carrying a Gizmo doll, which is cool. I love the fact that he's not afraid to admit, yeah, because of Gremlins, I'm somebody. He's not afraid to admit that. He had a lot of stories about Phoebe Cates. That was his co-star in the Gremlin movie. A lot of stories of filming with nothing, because remember, this was all graphics in the 80s, so it wasn't CGI at this time. It was practical effects. He had all 3. He really was interacting with the crowd. He had a lot of funny stuff. He was laughing. He was happy. The knowledge was through the roof, and the enthusiasm was there. He met all the categories, and he was actually just a fun guy. This is someone you would like to get to know. It's like, wow, this guy's cool. He realizes no no, I'm not the biggest actor in the world, but I was in like 2 of the coolest movies ever made, and I'm going to be remembered for the rest of history as being the kid in Gremlins and the spoofy movie Gremlins 2. And he talked about Gremlins 2, like, were you afraid to do it? Yeah, he was afraid to do it because they were like totally changing the formula, but it's become such a cult classic now that, hey, that worked out pretty well too.
Zach Galligan was amazing. He was fun, and he literally would answer anything that he could about anything he'd been in, which was actually kind of funny because they never really talked about his one big movie he was in, Waxworks.
Yes, Wax, and I saw that movie. You know, it's funny that you mentioned that, Vester, because we didn't really mention that. My friend was obsessed with Waxworks, so I had to see that movie. And it's a good movie. Is it great? No, but it's a very cheesy, fun B movie, and I think Vester would like it if he ever saw this movie. It's about being in a wax museum and the things come to life, of course, and they represent the characters that they're supposed to look like, so it was a very interesting movie. And then there was sequels and stuff, which we won't talk about either. But yeah, they didn't really bring up anything but Gremlins. And that was sort of the Trex's fault because they kept it very, very Gremlins only based, which I think is okay because that is what Zach Galligan's known for. I know I'm sounding like a hypocrite now. I'm saying it would have been fun if they mentioned some of this stuff, when in the past we said they shouldn't be mentioning stuff. But I think in this case, realize Zach Galligan is not just a Gremlins actor. I think it's a little different in this case. But yeah, 3rd place, bronze medal, well earned. Now, obviously, if you're doing the math, you see we have 2 people left. And the second that we're about to mention was a big surprise. We did not expect this guy to blow it out of the park like he did. The silver medal is going to go to Danny Trejo. And wow, what a surprise. This was one of the most entertaining panels I think I've ever seen in the history of a convention. The problem is
Danny Trejo himself, because what he did was he didn't talk into his mic a lot. So you're going, oh, this story's awesome, this story's awesome. He gets caught up in it. His hands go wild, and you're like, what did you just say, Ramses?
Yeah, that happened too many times, and the microphone's over here, the microphone's over there. And Dundridge tried to keep him on track, but Dundridge, again, was not doing a very good job here. But Dundridge was feeling the story. Like, this is a guy that came from nothing. He's not an actor. He didn't desire to be an actor, and he was actually in prison at one point of his life. And now he is a well-known villainous actor who doesn't mind being typecast, and he didn't use the line, if you're typecast, it means you're working, but he did say he was always available, he wanted to work, he wanted to do jobs, and he was happy to do jobs.
And let me emphasize something. Another pet peeve is the Delancey where, oh, it's all about work. We need work, 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 work. Well, the difference is when Danny Trejo says it, he actually means it, but he says it in a joking way. He says, I love this, I have my own businesses, and I love doing this. Send me more work. It was done not in such a serious way, but making light of the fact that he would always work. There is the big difference I feel that needed to be said.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was entertaining. I mean, he was talking about anything and everything. He got through every question in the line because he was talking so fast, which is great. He was so energetic that he was just like, ba 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 ba, and he was doing his classic voice, and he was talking about, I'm still working now, and I just the voice over this, so much energy, and he just never stopped.
Oh, and I want to point out something to everyone. Danny Trejo had literally just flown in the night before after filming and was more than happy to answer questions. He was happy to be there. Now, some of the others flew in, but they weren't working like he was. And he had all this energy, he's excitement, he loved being there. He's a philanthropist outside of the screen. He was amazing. And he literally could have been number 1, if not for a few minor things that our number 1 didn't do.
Yeah, the problem with Danny was he just wasn't able to overcome some of the issues here. You know, his not realizing how to speak properly, the microphone, and to stay on target sometimes and deal with bad questions. It was so close for him being number 1. We really were thinking about this very hard. Danny was that close because it was such a fun panel. You did not want this panel to end. He was answering everything and anything. The crowd was loving it. They were laughing. They were eating it up. The questions were either heartfelt, funny, informative, interesting. I mean, you name the emotion, and he covered all of it with different answers here. That's how enlightening this panel was.
And he also would take a moment or two to think about the answers. It wasn't just an automatic, regurgitated answer. Let's just say that Danny Trejo, we did not expect to be in the top 3, and somehow he made it to number 2. Congratulations, yes. Danny, you earned it.
Start that drum roll, please.
Our number 1 gold medalist, Weird Al Yankovic.
That's right, and we do love Weird Al, but that's not why he was number 1. Like you can see, we love Ernie Hudson too, and he's ranked very low. It's not about love. Weird Al blew it out of the ballpark. He did it right. He got everything right. He had Kid Cadet, which is, as we already mentioned, not a very good moderator.
Oh, by the way, folks, when we saw Kid Cadet come up there, me and Ramses both groan and go, oh my God, is she going to ruin this panel?
And it was close. But you know something? Weird Al, being the comic genius he is, he made this work. Every dud of a question asked, he would have a funny or ridiculous answer. Because, I mean, I hate to be like this, but even Weird Al realized these are ridiculous questions and what is she asking and who cares? So he was just being silly and goofy with her. And he got through her list like in 5 minutes because she had like a mile-long list. She was going to ask all these questions. She worked so hard on researching it. Oh boy. Yeah, he got through those questions like nothing. Let's get to the fan. So he knew perfectly how to handle her. He was giving her one-word answers. He was being facetious. He was being silly. And Kid Cadet was like looking all confused, like she didn't understand his humor. Again, why she should not be the moderator. If you don't understand your guest, why are you moderating this? But in spite of her, not due to her, in spite of her, he still was able to become the best panel because he dealt with her, got rid of her, and then she's like, all right, let's go to the crowd. And boy, this is when the panel became great because it was exactly how you would imagine people asking Weird Al questions would go. It became ridiculous after a while.
Oh yeah, there was the same thing. Oh, let me tell you how you changed my life. And he would answer the questions, some yes, some no. Although you could definitely tell, unlike Danny Trejo, who just appreciated any and all questions and really didn't care, you can see that some of these questions did kind of irk him because he's been doing this for a very, very long time. And if you actually know anything about him, there's a few pet peeve questions you don't ask him. Of course, they asked him every one of those pet peeve questions.
Absolutely, and he was not afraid to say, I don't want to deal with that, and I'm not answering that, and you should know. What's your favorite song? Don't ask Weird Al that. He will not answer that. What album didn't you like? Don't ask that. We know the answer is Polka Party, but still don't ask that. And the one thing you don't do is say, I have a parody idea for you I want you to hear. And never say that to Weird Al Yankovic because you're going to get the reaction you got here. I don't listen to that. Make it yourself. I'm not doing that. And that's exactly what he said. And he wasn't rubbing the wrong way. That's how Weird Al's Weird Al. Weird Al can't start borrowing things from people and then someone say, I gave him that idea. I'm not getting credit. Oh, I'm the one that did it. No, let Weird Al come with what Weird Al wants. If you want to do your own songs, do your own songs. I agree 100%. And I am so glad he has that hardline rule because then you'd have a line out the door of thousands of people giving all these parody ideas and then it becomes who came up with it. Weird Al stole it from him. Oh, this one came with that. Let Weird Al come up with Weird Al. You do your own stuff. He'll do his. And he made that very clear. But what Weird Al did so well was when he was interacting with the kids were all crazy and silly.
Weird Al, above all else, I really truly believe he loves interacting with the younger kids because it reminds him that his music is cross-generational. That is just fun for everybody. And this little kid comes up. I mean, they had to lower it down for him. He goes, have you ever seen Murder Bots? And Weird Al's like, no, he's getting ready to speak and ask the kid a question because he doesn't want to ruin the kid's thing. But the kid goes, okay, thank you, and then walks off and the crowd laughs at this.
I think he came up 2 more times. What was the one cartoon you wish you could have voiced? He's like, oh, I've done so many things, but I really wanted to voice, and I can't wait to do this. Murder Bots. Yeah. He said it in the Weird Al voice, and it had the whole place cracking up. It was great.
It was great. Like I said, this was a great panel. He did everything correct, except for the fact that I understand why he did it, but with his long, big hair, when he was facing Kid Cadet, you couldn't see his face at all. It really was a very interesting and weird panel, but it was definitely enjoyable. And quite literally, the only person that was capable of beating Weird Al was Danny Trejo, and he might have been able to do it with just a few fixes.
Yeah, Weird Al handled the questions perfectly. You heard him very clearly for the whole entire thing. He was comfortable. The interaction was higher than anyone else, but Weird Al was so comfortable in this environment. Like, he looked like natural, like he belonged talking to everybody. He was having fun with everyone in the crowd. Kid Cadet, he was playing like a fiddle. It was great. She couldn't get anywhere. He had the whole stage in control, and that's why he was #1 by far.
Which also makes me think this is probably why they put Kid Cadet, because they knew Weird Al was pretty much a William Shatner.
Yeah, you're not going to get him to answer your silly question. He doesn't care. Weird Al does do interviews, and I suggest a lot of you do watch it. When you're done with our video, check out some of the other interviews that Weird Al has done. Very interesting. He's a great talker. He loves talking about the history of how he got to be and how he came up with song ideas and what other artists think of him, and he went into a little bit of that too in this panel. But really watch interviews on him. He's a lot more than just a parodyist. He really has a lot of knowledge and know-how, and he's a great speaker too. And that's why I think Weird Al just blew it out of the park. Weird Al gold medal is well earned, well deserved.
The problem is that there's just so much to do and so little time to do it. Plus, at this point, at 13 Q&As, that's the most we've ever done.
Yeah, we're talking about 17 now if we did all these extra ones here.
So we want to actually enjoy our time here when we go to these things. So we can't do everything. We try to do the most that we can, but that being said, they can't beat this lineup next year. They might be able to do just as good, but if they have another panel like this, oh man, my back's going to kill me because we're going to be sitting in that main stage for another 6 hours straight.
So yep, that's our thoughts on the Q&As. You guys tell us what your thoughts are if you went to this convention, or even from our review if you have different opinions. Absolutely, ask questions. We love answering them too. All right, now it's time for everyone's favorite part of the show, our final reviews, our feelings of the overall convention experience. Reviewing all 3 days. How did we feel? How was the mood? How did they run it? Final thoughts, things to note, opinions, and then of course our star rating. Okay, yep, so this is it, folks. Finally, it's all been building up to this moment. So Vesper, how do you rate GalaxyCon Columbus from December 6th to the 8th in Columbus, Ohio, 2024, as part of our review, sirs? Here we go.
The vendors were absolutely great this year. If you wanted it, you could find it. They had everything. The fact that they actually learned from last year, it had a wide plethora of everything, not just anime and artists that drew anime. It was a godsend, and it allowed me to spend my hard-earned money that I wanted to, that I've been saving up for the last 2 GalaxyCons. Another thing that was made abundantly clear here, the quality of celebrities through the freaking roof. Weird Al Yankovic, Kiefer Sutherland, Danny Trejo, the Has Been Hotel voice actors, just -1 person, so you had 9 out of 10. That's absolutely amazing. There was so many people here. It was great. And I got my picture taken with Zach Galligan and William Catt. I love the selection of celebrities. But here was the real problem this year, and me and Ramses both did not expect it. Some of these panels should have been a lot higher rated because of some of the moderators. Me and Ramses, we went to the panels, games, and other activities. I think they set up more this year because they were given a little bit better space than being stuck in the back by the actual wrestling arena. Unfortunately, this year we didn't have time to do the wrestling arena. We had so much stuff that we had to do. Couldn't go to the wrestling. We learned last year, just don't do everything. Do what you're interested in, because guess what? GalaxyCon is growing and it's getting better. If you listen to our review from last year, our biggest worry was that they were going to super clamp down. There were lines everywhere last year. It was a mess. Everything was crowded together. And then you had that one security guard try to stop like 300 people from going indoors, which did not end well for that security guard. They came right out and said, this year at the exhibit hall, if you want in, when we take down the banisters, you may go in. Just please make sure that your pass is shown and you get to go in. They put weapons detectors at the 2 major entry points into the GalaxyCon walkthrough, and you didn't bing. Guess what? They didn't stop and check you. It kept a line going, and it was actually working, except for the fact there were so many people there who had no idea what they were doing. They literally started forming lines beyond the check-in point that was going to nowhere. There was multiple lines that led nowhere, going left and right, up and down passageways, as we're going, what's going on here? Why isn't there anyone here to tell them otherwise? Why don't we have just a few more regular check-ins, since that was the majority of people in the lines? Get more help. You've had to make a fortune on this. Hire at least 2 or 3 people just dedicated to keeping people in the admissions line, and put one of them outside to go, hey, just please walk down here, go through the security check-in. That's all you gotta do. That being said, I'm going to give my star rating of what I thought GalaxyCon was this year. Out of 5, 4.5. And you're like, you spoke so highly of everything, except for the organization. Why wasn't it a 5 to you? Because that organization could have also ruined my fun here at this event. It was that close to being a disaster, and I don't even think the GalaxyCon itself realizes that it was that close to becoming a disaster because of the organization outside of the exhibit hall. Inside, pretty good. Everything flowed great. It's the outside area, it's the registration area that gets very dicey. It's a growing experience, and I don't feel they've peaked yet. Keep up the vendors, keep up the celebrities, keep up the panels. Send your moderators to training, because they literally did ruin a few of the panels that could have been so much more.
All right, now it's my turn, and I'm going to do it a little different. I'm going to really talk about the positives, and then I'm going to talk about the negatives. So what do I like? I like that they did not ruin the entry method into the exhibit hall. That was so big a topic to me last year, and I was worried. You know, there was a Karen who made such a big stink about it. I was here since 5:30 in the morning, and you can't allow this. And one of the security guards was actually listening to her, and at least pretended. I don't know if it was an act, but now looking back on it, probably was, that she was going to stop it and it won't happen anymore. And this was on Sunday, by the way, so obviously we didn't know what was going to happen until we arrived here this year. But right on Friday, they started with this ridiculous opening for 15 minutes, which should go in my negative category, but since I'm talking about the entry hall, I'll throw it in here, which was stupid. If you're going to do that, do it 15 minutes before. Don't do it right as you're about to open the door. Everyone's excited to go in, and you're doing a yay us, and you can't hear anything on the speakers, by the way, so... Yes, I know, again, I'm throwing negatives in with the positive, but that was stupid. Not a bad idea to do a yay us, but do it earlier and make sure you have speakers. But anyway, we were worried that they were going to be like, oh no, you can't get in, you have to wait on this ridiculously long line for 2 hours. No, once the doors opened, it was, have your pass ready and walk right in, folks, enjoy the con. And that's exactly, by the way, exactly how it should be. Alright, so bravo, GalaxyCon, you get it on that method. You get it on that method. What else do you get it on? Pictures, alright? This is something that wasn't a big deal to Vesper, it's a big deal to me. You know, in our Huntington and even our Lexington reviews, I've made a very big stink about Inner Geek's policy of no pictures anywhere, pretty much. And they don't want you filming the celebrities, they don't want you videotaping anything, they don't want you anything with pictures or video. Video especially is their hill to die on. With GalaxyCon, they have a very nice picture here saying, pictures will be taken. You agree that this is okay by buying the ticket here. Pretty much right at registration this year, which is smart. I'm glad they put a registration. Pictures can be, and are expected to be taken, not only by staff, but by everybody here. Deal with it. And the vendors had to deal with it, the guests had to deal with it, the celebrities had to deal with it, the security guards had to deal with it, we had to deal with it. I'm sure we got caught in many pictures too. We even showed you that we were actually on a picture on the board there. And that's exactly why they put that up, because they're going to use us for advertising. GalaxyCon does so many things right, and it's sad that they messed up on so many things this year, because they really had it going. And then you enter this exhibition hall, and it is amazing. Even that they understood. There were more vendors, they were spread out a little tighter, but they also opened up the floor a little bit by not cramming a wrestling ring in there. I mean, it was ridiculous. They had this huge wrestling ring, and his seats taking up a huge portion of everything. And they got rid of something that me and Vesper were laughing at last year. The VIP area, remember we were joking, oh, it's a little stupid tent? They gave them a private panel room that only VIPs can enter into. Like when we were walking on Friday, I'm like, this is amazing. They let everyone in, they gave a VIP private, they opened up the floor, the wrestling ring's like all now in the back covered, they'll reveal it when it's time and only when it's time. They have a whole video game area, which I thought was a little better this year. They had arcade games, they had some retro stuff, they had competitions going on with the games, they had driving games there using like the most up-to-date graphics. It was great. I mean, they really got it, and then the vendors pretty much got the runt of the entire place. It was very well done. Every 15 minutes, they have at least 2 things going on. So even if you're not totally into something, you can find something. And even if you don't find something, the vendors will keep you busy. Now, this is also a drawback because they're cramming so much stuff in that unfortunately some of the ones we wanted to see, you know, Q&A panels or even regular panels, they're competing with others and you have to make a choice. You don't want to see like 15 minutes of this one and then 30 minutes of another. No, you got to sort of choose at that point. The Q&As were also amazing this year. Not the quality of that, and I'll get to that in my negative, but the variety, the guests they had, wow. They had every guest you could think of. Of course, meeting Weird Al Yankovic was one of my greatest pleasures. He is someone I've idolized since I was 5 or 6 years old. I don't even remember how young. So finally I got to meet Weird Al Yankovic in person. Yes, it was only a 30-second meeting, but it was such a joy and pleasure and something I've wanted to do my whole life. Getting his autograph, getting a picture with him, and actually getting to speak to the legend himself. I know you're all laughing, Weird Al Yankovic. Well, to me, he's a big deal. He was someone that is very important in my life. His music always made me laugh. His concerts were always enjoyable. He's someone that I felt I could relate to. He's just like a geeky, dopey guy who just likes to make fun and have fun with things and don't take things so seriously. So wow, what an honor. Ernie Hudson wasn't as enjoyable to me. It still was cool meeting him. He is my favorite Ghostbuster Winston. The very fact that this convention gives you a chance to meet someone like that, I was like, wow, it's really cool. And even some of the people Vesper met, I would have gotten theirs if I had more funds. My funds were running a little lower. Even the wrestlers were pretty cool here. And by the way, they had an AEW live event that took place during it. Yes, you had to pay, but it was a very small fee. You got to watch an AEW event at part of your convention. I mean, that's cool. You don't live in Fantasyland anymore. security is important, and I think they did the minimal but enough to make you feel secure. You know, you go through these weapon detectors, because they're weapon detectors, they're not metal detectors, they are weapon detectors. And if it beeps, they're going to check what the object is, and of course you're going to be alright, because you know the security is going to catch it, so no one's coming in with a weapon, but that's why you need this here. It is a great deterrent, it's going to prevent any problems, and they only stopped like maybe a few people that we saw every time we went in and out, and it was great. They did a final check, they said, okay, you're good, yep, and it made me feel secure. Bravo to GalaxyCon for doing that. I thought it was great, a very great improvement. They even gave you a warning that Saturday is going to be crazy, 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 and they were not kidding. And that was all due to Has-Been Hotel being their guest. It's a little more organized in that they weren't panicked that so many people were down there at once, but their organization has to get better, and we'll get to that in my negatives. So I was very happy with that. Now, the other positives are, I thought some of the side panels were very interesting this year. You know, last year, some of the side panels sucked. The point is the panels were better. You know, they had a lot better choices. They had a lot of crafting. They had a lot of discussion. They had a lot of retro stuff. You know, they had a Back to the Future panel we didn't get to go to. I mean, I know everything about Back to the Future. We didn't have to go to that. And a lot more volunteers, and they were good volunteers. Like the one we saw was a retro gaming collecting expert, and she was great. She really was great. Like I said, her panel needed a little work, but besides that, she had the knowledge, and you believed everything she was saying. She was very good at that. All right, now for the negatives, because yes, that's all positive stuff, wasn't it? That's great. It sounds like, wow, what a fun event. Well, there's a lot of negatives here, and we're going to start with registration. What a mess. You have 5 booths for registration. 3 are for regular, 1 is for deluxe, and 1 is for VIP. Well, guess what? Most of the people here are standard registrations. So that gives you 3 booths, and you have 2,000 people waiting to use 3 booths. There's a problem here. That does not make sense to me. Me and Vesper got lucky that someone eventually told us, oh, hey, are you deluxe or VIP? Oh, you want to go all the way down there. You don't have to wait on this line. If not for the luck that some rando that was working there, it wasn't the fan, it was a random guy who just, for unknown reasons, we didn't have our tag yet, said, oh, are you? It was unknown reasons, we got lucky. Otherwise, we'd be waiting on this line for 2 hours to get to a registration when we only had to wait 20 minutes on the other line down at the end. Very ridiculous. And moving it to the other end made no sense to me. So now all you've done is stretch the line further, instead of putting it into a little outlet room where it was more organized and you kept the outflow there. I thought it was better last year. Vesta thought this year was better. I thought last year's registration was better, where you had it in a separate section. That way you had lines forming within the lines, instead of one gigantic line that goes on for a mile. It's very confusing, fills up the whole thing. I mean, you're making buku bucks here. You must be making millions. I probably even more. I can't even imagine how much money you made with the amount of people that were here. Hire more people, open more registration booths, instead of putting it further down. Hey, we're moving it down so the line's longer. No. Double the amount of registration. Triple the amount of registration. Hire people. Spend that money. I know that's hard for an organization to hear. Spend the money you are making to make this run better. You know, that it's not that complicated. You're still going to make your millions of dollars minus, what, another $2,000 or something that's going to cost to hire some more people and spread out the registration a little bit. You need 10 registration booths, 2 VIPs, 2 deluxes. That's the right thing to do. Stop being greedy. That annoyed me a little bit. And you had nobody directing it except for a rando that finally came to us. Why are there not people monitoring these lines, making sure people know where they're going, making sure it's all organized? You have a mile-long line that never got better. All you have to do is spread out the registration, have more registration booths, and have people guiding it. You had a volunteer who gave up after a half hour. He's like, well, I'm gonna enjoy the convention. I did my job. Why are volunteers doing this? Pay people. Forget the stupid volunteers. We don't want to pay. You better volunteer. That's what volunteer is. Pay people. You're a big enough company now. What are you expanding? You're in Omaha now. You're in St. Louis. You're in Virginia. You're all over the place. New Orleans. Pay some people to run this. The line should not be out of control. It should be organized. And speaking of lines, yes, now it is time for me to talk about my biggest problem was those circular infinity lines that were on Saturday outside of the main area. Once you exit, me and Vesper were like, oh my god, what happened here? We went to our car to put our stuff away, and there were lines amongst lines of circles all over the place. Nobody was organizing this. No one was saying, hey, keep moving, guys. No one was directing traffic at all. It was just lines amongst lines, and we're like, Vesper, what happened? We just left, and now we're trapped out here. What are we going to do? And we both were like, well, it is what it is. And if not by the grace of Vesper being smarter than his co-host here, we probably would still be waiting on that.
And more stubborn. That was the stubborn part. I was refusing to wait in a line that didn't make no sense.
Right, so I'm like so mad, not at him. I really was not mad. I was mad at just the whole situation. How did this happen? This is ridiculous. Well, thank goodness Vestor said, no, it's not possible, and it wasn't possible. It was just bad organization. At GalaxyCon, you can't allow this to happen. You can't allow random infinity lines to form outside because people get all confused and think you have to wait on lines all the time. It was fine. Once you got to the check-in booth with the security, it moved in no problem, even with the amount of people. How did this happen? Well, that's on you guys. Again, hire more people. You can't allow this. You cannot allow people and their hard-earned money to be stuck on fake lines. I mean, that's unacceptable. That really ruined a lot of my good vibes with you guys, because I'm like, well, they're just not hiring people here. They're just not caring enough to prevent these lines. Lines were a very big issue. They really were a very big issue here. Phantom lines and the regular registration line. And now we're going to get to another line that was ridiculous. The Has-Been Hotel Q&A, you totally messed up here. You had standing room only. You had fans were dying to get in here. Fans were loving this. Fans were cosplaying as them. Fans were gushing over Has-Been Hotel. So what do? You couldn't care less that people in the back are standing. They can't see. Everyone's just being obnoxious. That you have a line a mile long and it's taking forever to get these people on the stage. That people are like in the doorways crying they can't get in. Or if they're in, they can barely see anything. Well, there's a way to fix this. Double the amount of time that this panel is being held. That's very easy to fix. And have it broadcast outside or in a room. Use like 3 panel rooms. You don't need stupid panels that no one's going to. Go to 3 panel rooms where they're broadcasting it in those rooms. There you go. Ta-da! You just fixed the problem. Very simple. I mean, how come a layman like me can figure out how do you fix this problem? But you guys are just counting all the books you made. Hey, money, money, money. This is great. Well, no, it's not great. The Has-Been Hotel panel, which was an amazing panel, because look at the love that everyone had for that. I'm not a big Has-Been Hotel fan, but I enjoy the series and I appreciate what they've done. You did not handle this right at all. You can't treat the fans like this. You can't do that. You gotta double the amount of time, because people are here for that. Why would you give 45 minutes and fans are giving 3-minute little speeches of how much they love them and they're all like looking to you how to answer? You're working to 9 people answering everything. You gotta double the amount of time that this is being held and show it elsewhere. Very easy to fix, but you guys didn't. You totally messed up on that one. And speaking of panels messing up, these moderators are hit and miss, and I've had enough of it. Last year, they were all good except for one. It was Milo Beasley who totally ruined that Hercules panel issue. That was disgusting. It was a horrible panel. This year, they got better, but they got worse. So I think these panels are just getting fatigued. I really think you're overworking them. They're not prepared. You're just like randomly throwing like darts. You do them, you do them, you do them. Why are the Notorious Treksters doing Ernie Hudson? Why in the world are you having them do? They know nothing about it. They are Star Trek experts. Yes, they're geeks. That doesn't instantly make them Ghostbuster experts, because they weren't. They were not the right people to put with Ernie Hudson. I think a Patty would have done better. Even Milo would have been better than the Treksters with Ernie Hudson. It's so foolish that you guys don't think out, gee, who will mesh well with who? You have Kid Cadet with Nick Castle. She was like, oh, tell us about that. Oh, what was it like being that? Oh, that was her question. And I'm thinking, like, did she ever see a Halloween movie in her life? Does she even realize that this guy was in other things but Halloween? She had her, like, standard list of questions that she was going through. And then even this, you had a line of a lot of people that want to ask questions. Well, when you see you're struggling and when you see it's going nowhere, well, let's get to the crowd. No, she held on for as long as possible. She was going to get through her boring questions and she didn't care. Weird Al, though, is the one that taught her a lesson here. She had the same ridiculous list with Weird Al Yankovic. Weird Al must have had 100 people in the line. He definitely didn't get through all of them. And what did she do? She went through her questions, and he gave her like one-word answers because he couldn't care less. And she ran out of her questions. They said, all right, let's go to the crowd. So Weird Al knew how to deal with this. He was very smart. Our number 1 and our number 13, look at the difference with the same moderator. It's all about how the guest handles the moderator also, which we also learned by Jim Shooter. It's all about how you handle the moderator. Do not let the moderator take control of this panel. Jim Shooter was giving Tyler the death eye and actually calling him out, and Tyler, being the obnoxious turd he is, was waving Jim off like, I got this, don't tell me that, I know what to do. Why are you hiring people like this? Why is Tyler Woods a moderator at your conventions? What is he? Is he a relative? Does he know someone? Why is this moron moderating panels here? It doesn't make sense to me. The guy is inadequate and obnoxious and wants to hog the spotlight. I couldn't care less about Tyler Wood. I mean, he could say yes and no, and that could be as much as I want out of him. I don't want him saying anything. I am going to give credit to Patty, though. Patty, I was very hard on last year. George Takei panel was awful. The hero worship was disgusting. And then you did not control that panel at all. George Takei was struggling out there. He was having trouble coming up with things because he's an old man now. He was going on about what a hero I am. Look at me, look at me. He was doing a Jodie Whittaker, and you were treating it exactly the same way. This is like deja vu from last year. What a hero I am. Look at me. I'm the greatest. I'm the greatest. And you were allowing it because you agreed, which is fine. You're allowed to have an opinion. I am not faulting you for that. I'm faulting you for not being a professional. And even though you're allowing it, you got to say, we got to move on. Let's get to the question. That's your job, Patty. You got to move the panel along. These moderators want to be the star of the show. I don't care about you guys. I'm sorry. Some of you are more entertaining than others. I don't care about you. I couldn't care less. If it was John Smith for every single one, I couldn't care less. I don't care about the moderators. I'm sorry. I don't care about you. I know that's shocking. I don't care about you moderators. I care about the celebrity I'm there to see. It is your job to be a ringleader. Keep it moving properly. Yes, you can ask some opening questions. Of course, get things going. I'm all right with that. When you have a mile-long line, you go to the fans. It's as simple as that. How many panels did you ruin in this convention? At least 4 that we saw. At least 4. And I'm being generous and not downrating all of them. At least 4 that we saw, you moderators ruined, personally. Those were my negatives. Are they fixable? Yes, but the moderators are a problem because they keep using the same guys, and even Dundrich, who we loved last year, was very weak this year. He had a really bad panel with Zachary Levi and Cooper Andrews. Zachary Levi was out of control, and it was up to Dundrich to reel him in. And then he gives a little speech about don't ask him anything controversial. No, you don't ever tell fans what to do and what not to do. That's disgusting. That's not how you run a show.
You don't say, don't ask anything controversial. You instead say it in a way that respects the audience by going and saying, please don't ask anything disrespectful.
Right.
He's our guest.
Yeah, that's all you had to say. And then the nickel and diming on all these extra events. $500 for Weird Al, ridiculous. You're charging people at a convention to watch AEW wrestlers, and you didn't have the top talent, by the way. You had mid-card wrestlers. You're charging for that? Really? That sounds disgusting to me. So the nickel and diming was a little annoying, too. You also raised the parking, but I get it. Everything goes up. So it's now $75 for a 3-day event. That's a lot of money to ask people, and that kind of sucks, too. So that's my feelings of the convention. So what am I going to give it? Not as high as Vesper, but not as low as you'd think either. It's 4 stars for me. 4 stars, absolutely. Little lower than Vesper, but that's how I feel. The negatives I mentioned are 1 star lower. Really, it's organization. You can't help celebrities. You cannot control how good a celebrity is going to be on any given day. You can get William Shatner sick, or you can get he's hilarious. You can get George Takei gets great guest asking questions, or you can get what we got this year, fan worship and Patty not controlling. I mean, you have no idea. So I can't say celebrities are a reason for it. But organization, I can 100% blame. And the worst thing was, and I'm saving for after I gave my stars, is the video game section. I was so looking forward to the retro video game section. They were bragging, we have a retro video game section, we have games. No. What they had was an Atari 2600 Plus, which is an emulator that can play cartridges. That's not a new technology. The Retron does the same exact thing. So it's a Retron shaped like a Atari pretty much. That's what they had for the Atari with 1 multi-pack, and they had a game in it that has multi-games, but you only had 1 controller, so good luck playing multi-games on that. You had a Genesis, barely worked, and the Sonic game was almost unplayable because you couldn't see it. And then you had Metal Gear Solid on the PS1, and that too, you're not sitting there playing Metal Gear Solid for 2 hours at a convention. I mean, what a ridiculous game to put on there. You don't want to put fighting games, you don't want to put action games, Spyro or something. I mean, you have a million other games on the PS1 that would have been more appropriate to have here. The retro gaming sucked. I was really very disappointed. And we did you saw our video, that was it. That was it. The little video review we did there within this review was all there was for the retro. What a disappointment. I've been at other conventions where they had full emulators, full MAME arcade machines, full thousands of games of every type at stations. Why can't GalaxyCon do this?
Oh, wait, Ramses. They did do this 2 years ago for the first one.
That's right. They had every single video game system in our first year at GalaxyCon. Every single one. That's a reason why I removed the Have a Star. The gaming was so pathetic. If it wasn't for the great events that Abdullah was doing, I think it would have been even lower. At least he was entertaining and he was making the gaming fun. But you had an arcade machine with Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is a great game. We even reviewed it on our channel. You got to do better than this. This is really pathetic, the gaming. A step in the right direction compared to last year, but still far away from how you were in your first year. You got to get back to your first year where you had every option available. Now you're sort of throwing a bone with some emulator and games that are unplayable. Well, yeah, that's not really a retro section. All right, you got to do better on that. So yeah, that's my thoughts on GalaxyCon Columbus 2024. All right, Vester, let's wrap it up.
Alright, so guys, I know it's a long one, but it was a good one. So please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and
ring that bell so we can bring you a lot more where this came from. It was a lot of fun, folks. We both gave it over 4, so obviously we had a good time. Negatives are negatives, and that's just how it is. But if you want a good convention, go to GalaxyCon. They do run a good show. They have a lot of work still ahead of them, but compared to some of the other conventions out there, this is top tier. And it really can only get better from here if the people running GalaxyCon are willing to spend some money and do it right. You got to spend money, hire the people. And you know something? I think this could be a 4.5, 5-star every single time if they continue in the right direction.
that's right. So remember, come to GalaxyCon 2025 and look for your hostess with the mostest, me, TheVespor.
And what about me, Vester?
You kept losing our freaking programs, and you're my assistant and secretary.
Secretary, I never signed on for that. I thought I was just a co-host here. Vesper.